So just want to put out an updated video. I do these videos more for my own benefit so I can look back on these, but if anyone's interested, I've made some progress. Obviously the engine is now in and everything looks okay. So finally got the Quaife sequential box back. There was no issue with Quaife or anything else. It was more an issue in that because it uses the OEM bell housing, so you can see the different colours of silver here. So this is the OEM VAG bell housing. So the original one in the gearbox, so the original gearbox and the bell housing that we donated to Quaife to build the gearbox originally was cracked, and so were the 3 other donor gearboxes that I bought to try and fix the issue. So it took me four gearboxes later to find a good bell housing. So this came out of a low mileage GT TDI Mark IV Golf and was the right codes and works perfectly. So it's in perfect, got it bead blasted, actually looks decent. There's a couple of little things that need to change, obviously, because everything this side of the bell housing is different from the OEM box. So there's a little bit of interference just here, where you see this part of the chassis which runs vertically down towards the floor. It if the engine moves that way at all, it will sort of start rubbing. So I'm gonna probably just pull the engine up enough to get me in with a grinder to chop that down like 5 mil, maybe 7 mil, and it'll just clear enough. Everything else is in, like, genuinely surprised that it has not caused me any issues. Isn't fighting me that badly. You can see where the original, because these gearboxes were originally intended for front wheel drive cars. I believe Quaife have told me that this is the first QKE 6V VAG sequential box that's gone into a rear wheel drive car. So you can see where this original casted mount, because if you imagine this engine was in the front of a car, the shifter cable would sit located here and pick up on this shifter like that. Obviously we're in a rear wheel drive car, so and the engine's in the back, so we needed to make up this this black bracket, which Pete did by way of 3D scanning and CAD design. So it just works, it's perfect. And the shifter just lands here just perfectly and clears the starter motor and stuff like that. So I'm actually quite surprised it hasn't caused me too many issues, although I'm going to touch wood and hopefully I don't run into any. But yeah, the original torque mount has been replaced and bolted in, and therefore there's no movement in the engine at all, so there should be no issues. And when I put the car up, you'll see that there is now an appropriate gap between the pickup on the lower arm and the sump of the engine, which was the root cause of the original problem, really, because the rear torque mount, which is here, wasn't bolted in. Now this is completely new torque mount, much more substantial than the old one, but it braces the engine and the rear part of the chassis, prevents any rocking in the engine, and therefore won't allow for this bolt to punch a hole into the sump like the previous one did. So had the owner looked properly and seen that there was no bolts in the original torque mount and therefore the engine was rocking, he wouldn't have had to do this really poxy repair of putting a piece of rubber in and really doing nothing. So we'll fix that. We have now fixed that, so that's good. Engine nothing is out of place. Gearbox is in pretty much all the right places with the exception of here. Probably have to, everything, as I say, this side back is different from the OEM box, so we'll probably have to chop this arm out and relocate it an inch further back and maybe triangulate it a bit to keep the strength in the arm, but that will allow for this to clear, and yeah, it should pretty much be good to go. There's the bottom side of the bracket that Pete and Brooke had maybe, so it's really good. And actually you can see where the shifter cable. So once it's secured up like that, there'll be no interference. It's located correctly and stuff like that. So yeah, we're pretty much pretty good state here. What's next? So obviously the wiring loom, I completely rebuilt that from scratch, using, well, it's motorsports spec, using Raychem heat shielding and all new connectors. I don't have a nice fancy label printer, so that's just my best handwriting there. So, but yeah, the idea is, well, I had the block of the engine in while I was trying to figure out the lengths for the injectors and you know, the coils and stuff like that. So the idea is once the charge cooler is mounted up, which Pete's going to do for me, but I got it'll effectively hide the majority of the wiring loom and look quite neat. So Pete's going to do that. That's going to sit there. I had this charge cooler made custom from Pro Alloy, so that apparently is tested up to 550 horsepower in a Lotus Elise, actually, with this engine. So it does away with the previous really shoddy intercooler charge cooler combination thing that didn't work. Well, apparently it didn't work. So we can make progress with the charge cooler. It's going to be all hard pipe. Pete is going to do that. You can also now make progress on the exhaust and get the exhaust and the manifold and the external wastegate all done. And I'll show you where I'm at with the electrics. So as I say, I wired this myself and it does need tidied up a little bit, but once I'm finally ready to go and drive it and enjoy it, I'll tidy this up and take the labels off and stuff, and you'll not see most of this. The carpet will go back on it. It all comes running through here underneath the shifter, and we've an ECU master dash. Battery isolator is working, and key on. So everything on the car is now going through the ECU, all via CAN bus, and this is a CAN bus keypad which will be mounted here. So this controls everything on the ECU: boost, launch, anti-lag, start, stop, obviously mode to change the dash to track mode and stuff like that, so I can record my lap times and things. And obviously this will double up as a second protection mechanism by way of an immobilizer. So this requires a certain sequence of buttons to be pressed before it will allow power to the coils, the injectors, or the starter motor. So yeah, so no longer starting via key, it's push button start once the sequence of buttons has been pressed. So yeah, and obviously I shouldn't be dry shifting, but oh, it feels so good. Anyway, so yeah, I've got carbon fiber bits coming for this and carbon fiber for here. Drive-by wires now working, everything's working. I've tested all the outputs and inputs to the ECU, so all that seems to be okay, and I don't think we're going to have any issues, so fingers crossed.